some walking catfish. We got out of the yard. And there they are. Chris is returning some walking catfish back to the pond. Hopefully that's where they come from. We don't know. Wait a second. I was going to say that's a goodie. Whoa, let him walk. I am. See the water. I don't know where it is. She's got to put the other one out there. There you go. Let's see what he does when he gets to the water. Put the other one out there. We put them in the pond, or I guess they came from. They had to come across the well, the water fills up the ditch there, and then into our neighborhood.
Live, this is One for the Record. I'm Diane, and today is August 3rd, 2013, and here are your news updates for today. Oh, I had to work again, but that's a good thing. Alrighty then, the Watchers watching the world. Let's go up into here and see what's going on. Alrighty then, expensive medications rendered useless by gut bacteria. Free energy breakthrough. Holy grail of water splitting technology now achieved with sunlight. See? I talk about it and then it comes up on one of these other channels. Alright. Let's go on to the Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. Comets found lurking closer to Earth than previously thought. Ooh, okay. That's all that's new there. Because, you know, it's Saturday, late Saturday evening. Alrighty, let's go to... You hear the frogs in the background. Let's go to the breaking news, the energy news. Driver who drove into crowd on Venice Beach boardwalk fled scene. That was 17 minutes ago. NBC LA, I guess some crazed driver drove through a crowd of people, injuring a bunch of people on the Venice boardwalk. Heads up. Earlier today. Thai politician Korn Chatikavanj, if I'm saying it right, has acute liver failure, and that's coming out of the Bangkok Post. TEPCO says 5.8 magnitude earthquake in northeastern Japan did not impact Fukushima reactor. Good. Alright. It's coming out of W7 VOA. That was 57 minutes ago. What else we got? Go here. Earthquake. Earthquake in Japan is calculated at magnitude 5.8, 35 miles east-southeast of Ishinomaki, Japan. Coming out of USGS. Okay. And that was an hour ago. Also, Highway 406 near Moses, New Mexico, near the Oklahoma border, is impassable due to flash flooding. I'll repeat that. Highway 406 near Moses, New Mexico, near the Oklahoma border, is now impassable due to flash flooding. Heads up, this is coming out of breaking weather. Always have a life jacket in the back of your back seat of your car, inside your car. Okay. Teen dies in Toronto after being struck by parade float. It's coming out of City News 2 hours ago. That's terrible. Alright. Moving on. Wow. One day I'm just going to do the good and funny news or something. We need a break from all this travesty. Alright, let's see. E&E News, Energy News, Japan's first astronaut. Government lies about Fukushima disaster. Vital info on radiation risk kept from public to maintain law and order. I guess people are going to get sued now, maybe, huh? It's incompetent. NHK, contaminated underground water may have moved above ground at Fukushima plant. Asahi, immediate concern, it's spilling into Pacific. Excuse me. Tunnels under Fukushima plant suspected to have quake damage allows radioactive water to move into ground, still holding over 15,000 tons. High-level contamination flowing in from turbine buildings. TEPCO couldn't afford to work on tunnels. Then why is TEPCO in charge of this thing? Thank you very much. Alrighty then. U.S. Canada. Today, TV, close call at U.S. nuclear plant, evacuated for 5 hours after leak set off alarm, let out a large amount of gas. That's coming from the Farley nuclear plant. Terrorists reached nuclear bomb material at U.S. facility during mock attack. Also today, why even play around that thing? U.S. nuclear plant remains under alert. Fire retardant system engaged. Concerned about oxygen levels. Safety teams on site. Farley. U.S. nuclear plant declares alert. Events could degrade or have degraded level of safety. Public should stay tuned to radio and TV. Farley. This is at the Farley plant, F-A-R-L-E-Y. Let's see where that is, like we know where all of them are at in the United States. Alabama Power. Okay, so that's happening out in Alabama. Alrighty then. Heads up in Alabama, okay? Alrighty then. Alright. One day down of the weekend. We got one more to go. Please be safe. Take care. Be prepared for anything. Keep life jackets. 2 of them in the back seat of your car. You know, up against the back seat. If you're driving alone, that's fine, but you might have a passenger one day with you. Alright? Just make sure you have life jackets back in your car, just in case anything happens. All of a sudden you're in a ditch and there's a bunch of water. You grab that thing and put it on. Alright. Take care. I'll see you again on the flip side. Stay tuned. I'm going to play the Uncensored. I'm going to play the whole thing because usually I don't have enough time. Now I have enough time. Usually I'll take out anything that doesn't sound, you know, we don't want to insult anybody. But this time around, I'm doing this so late, I got the whole thing of the 3rd hour for Dr. Bill DEAGLE. Alrighty then? Doesn't mean we totally agree with everything he says, but scientifically, the man's a genius. And that's just how it goes. I've been watching him. I watched his report in 2006. He was talking about the H1N1 and what it was going to do and how it's going to recombinate and all kinds of stuff. He was talking about all this stuff. He disclosed everything there is to disclose. back in 2006, and that was at the that was out in Los Angeles area, out in the valley. So look that one up. It was a forum out in 2006 out in the valley, in Canoga Park or something like that. You can watch it. It's like something like 3 hours long. He tells you everything back then. Alrighty then, in 2006. Alright, disclosed everything. From chemtrails, A to Z. A to Z, everything. Everything that you see going on right now, from the super soldiers to the RFID chip, everything is disclosed. It's a 3 hour long thing. Granada, that's what it is, the Granada Forum. Look that up. One day I'll play the whole thing, but that's 3 hours long. I don't know how we'll do that, but total disclosure of everything, from the mercury in your teeth to what it does. I mean, everything. He discloses everything. You couldn't do a better job. Alright. So, stay tuned. I'm playing the whole third hour from yesterday. Alright, and that's why it's so late. Take care. I keep uploading stuff. Take care, and I'll see you on the flip side. And I hope you like the walking catfish. I actually saw one. That's a real thing. Now the fish are coming out of the water and walking around. You always wondered about that, huh? On evolution, you know, oh, and then the fish came on the land and started walking around. There's catfish that do that. They're originally from Asia or something. So they're all over the place in Florida now and down in the southern hemisphere. Imagine that. And then also, I think there's some in California, someone said. Check it out. These things just walk around and breathe air. And then they go back in the water, but they just breathe air. It's weird. Alright, take care. Be prepared for anything, even a fish crawling out of the water.
Welcome back, and our co-hosts this hour, every Friday, John Moore and Ann Morrison have their own program over on Republic Radio, 7 to 9 a.m. CST, Central Standard Time. John and Ann, what are the latest news updates?
Hello, Dr. Bill. Good to be here. I just got off the phone with my adult daughter in Seattle, Washington, just 10 minutes ago.
Right.
I told her I want her and her husband and teenage son to have all their vehicles topped off with fuel and at least $1,000 in $20 bills on cash on hand in the household. I'm very concerned with what's going to be happening the next week or so.
Right.
Reports I'm getting have me as concerned as I've been for, I would say, years.
Right.
Hopefully nothing will happen, but I would consider this a yellow alert situation. The possibility of a nuclear weapon going off somewhere on the planet is a clear and present danger, along
Right.
with things we've been talking about, such as the various flu viruses, what's going on in the Middle East with Syria, and so forth. So
Right.
I want to encourage all our listeners to stop and take a deep breath and consider their own situation. What would you do if,
Right.
for any reason, there was a national emergency where martial law was declared, whether it was a coronal mass ejection, electromagnetic pulse, a nuclear device being set off in the Middle East? What would you do? Are you ready? Do you have your food? Do you have your water filter? Do you have medical supplies? And what you need to defend your family? If you don't, I would encourage people to consider getting and making whatever last-minute preparations they can, and then moving forward from there, this coming Monday at the beginning of the business week, or even over the weekend with the internet, ordering whatever new supplies they might need to fill in whatever gaps there might be in their personal preparedness. I can't tell you, Doctor. I don't want to sound like Chicken Little on one hand, one on the other. When I get numerous reports from individual sources that I know and trust, I feel I have to be public about it and do the right thing and give a prudent warning.
Well, let me give some backup of that. One of my trainers, Jerry Strybos, because he worked with the Saudi billionaire, he's on these State Department alerts that they sent to his phone. His lady, who is coming back here and going to be in the States in a few weeks' time, but she flies for these, we want to call top billionaires in their private aircraft. She's a senior stewardess. And what Jerry said to me was that, and then, of course, one of the doctors right down in the clinic, Dr. Barrick and Dr. Heller, mentioned that they saw the State Department alerts that all of our embassies in Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Qatar, etc., are closing.
Right.
And they're going to be closing, like, as of now, to at least the 4th or thereafter, and could be, quote, additional days added to that, which means all of our U.S. embassies are closing throughout the Middle East right now.
Right. Exactly.
That means something big is afoot. Now, there's two ways to look at this, and I tell people always put your thinking cap on before you jump. There's two ways that this can be. Number one, there's a lot of harassment occurring. There was a bipartisan vote that was very narrow, almost put a shackles on the no such agency snooping on Americans, which doesn't make us safer. So that, number one, this could be what I call a 9/11 style event, which is basically they need to scare us into letting us make sure that they continue to snoop on us, number one. And number two, what could be going on is something real, which could be a nuclear terrorism, the spread of a bioweapon, which is, by the way, the SARS-2 and the H3 and H7N9. So we have only two ways that you can look at this. It's something real, like SARS is broken out and it's coming, or they're trying to scare us, or both. Right. There's no in between. And the fact is that most terrorism occurs when they're having a drill. If there's a drill anywhere, then get out of what I call the flash zone, the bioweapon spread zone of the drill. So if there's a drill in your town or city or in your country, get out of town. Because if there's a drill, you can be certain, if they do want to do a false flag terror, it's going to occur when the drill's occurring. Just like the Tsarnaev brothers, those boys were being warned. We were warned by the Russian secret services more than a year or so beforehand.
Right.
The FBI had even met with the family.
They're the Russian intelligence services were doing the right thing, warning our intelligence services, and our people did not pay heed.
They paid heed, but they paid here. Here's the other twist I'm going to say. They paid heed because they wanted them on a long choke chain so they could do their terrorism. Because their real agenda is to put electronic shackles on us, because they kicked them in 2009 the biometric ID, and they were going to do it this past May, but now they try to attach it with the Gang of 8 bill with the senators, and now they want to attach it to a congressional bill if they can get Bonner on side to go for this. The fact is that the biometric ID is part of the mark of the beast system, and they want it in by next May. Next May is not that far away. The job of military intelligence, Doctor, is to find out what's going to happen before it happens, and I've known that for 45 years. And people like myself and U.S. radio talk show hosts, each of us have our own list of contacts and networks, and we talk to each other. What I'm doing amounts to a private intelligence service with people I'm connected to, and these connections and the reports I'm getting, I know I'm at risk of repeating myself. I am very, very concerned that over the next week or 2 weeks, a major event is going to take place. That's why, and I don't do this very frequently, when I call my daughter and tell her to top off the fuel tank, I am doing something I rarely do. And that's what I just did 15 minutes ago. Well, Big Sister decided that she's now leaving the agency, the DHS, and Napolitano. And one of the main warnings she made in the past year is that we cannot stop a container containing a nuke. We're not talking about a suitcase nuke. We're talking about a container-sized one. Right. And the reason is they don't check every cargo ship coming in through the Freeport, Bahamas. It literally is the opening port for things coming into America. And the agents that are allowing traffic to come in containers are PLA, People's Republican Army from Hutchinson and Whampoa. The largest seaport on the eastern seaboard is not American. It's in Freeport, Bahamas. On the west coast, Costco is by Long Beach by the Communist Chinese. And I know from all my contacts inside the government that all the military weapons that arm the gangs, including everything from AK-47s to body armor to guillotines, are being made in China and shipped to America in advance of whatever the hell they're going to do next. The million-man army that they built with DHS, Obama already has his, if you want to call it, Centurion Guard. He's ready. People don't understand that whether it's him or the next character in the office of the presidency, they have made a turnkey totalitarian state easy. And they now move to a new phase where they are open. They're not hiding it underground anymore. They're coming out and say, yeah, we're monitoring you. and yeah, get used to it, and yeah, if we didn't do it, you'd be dead. You know, live with it. And then they got idiots like Christie
up until fairly recently, they were trying to. They had the British spying on us and us spying on the British. Now they're just out openly doing it on us themselves.
Well, I heard William Binney, who's the CIA, we call the original CIA whistleblower. His site is whistleblower.com. I was listening to a Coast to Coast article, and he was an excellent guy, so we'll probably try to get him on the program. And he made a very profound statement. He said, in the past it used to be a country that had government. Now we have a government that has a country.
Good, I like that.
I thought that was a very good analogy. That sounds like a DEAGLEism. This guy's on the same tracks, because I thought, man, he crystallizes it down to a metaphor that says, if they have the goods on you, they got you. They know what magazines you read, who you talk to. They got data stream analysis. And don't tell me about the crap about metadata and all this crap. I know about Promise software and AI systems. I worked on all kinds of advanced things, and they tried to recruit me to work on the Super Soldier program. I took care of employees working on the Virtual World Project, which is at Schriever Air Force Base, 3 higher levels of security than NORAD, and took care of some employees up to 6 years after I was even working there formally.
Super Soldier program, would that have been around 1982, 83?
1978, UCLA VA Hospital in conjunction with UC. Yep.
I was looking at maybe becoming one of those super soldiers back in 79 and 80 and 81.
They were doing everything. Of course, we talk about this with the hack gene, the human artificial chromosome. DARPA's come out and said, yeah, we built it, so what? Human artificial chromosomes to create super soldiers is right in the news today. You can look at it for us through Drudge and Google News, Yahoo News, etc. The blockade is what killed them. Right? It's all logistics. Welcome back, and I was watching a program the other day with the very bright Michio Kaku, and he talks about, of course, his super soldier suit with the nanofibers and the coil springs that are very powerful, a combination of fast and strong, using alcohol vapors. And, of course, the super suit was using micromagnetometers. When I was recruited to work on the super soldier program, they were using a super-cooled, with liquid nitrogen squid helmet, used forms of magnetometers to convert thought. So a helmet uses these magnetometers to convert thought directly into onboard commands of a starfighter, a jet fighter. And the micromagnetometers are made now so small you can actually make a helmet that looks like just a normal helmet, like a fighter helmet. And those can convert thought directly to onboard commands or shine the specific icons on their glasses, like Google glasses. And you can actuate ordinances or fly by thought, which is 6 times faster than fly by wire even. So when people think that, no, they're not trying to bring a world of Gattaca with a hack or human artificial chromosome 47, it's all in the news. In fact, I'm going to post it up today. You can actually read all the articles. So when people do argue in the past that it doesn't exist. So what do you think about that, John?
Well, it sounds like Star Wars coming to life to me.
We already have Star Wars, by the way. We have fleets. And believe it or not, one of the fleets that we have, which is on the old Aurora, which is, by the way, starting to come out of service in 2010, is the Luftwaffe. Do you know the Luftwaffe never surrendered to the Western forces? And part of the deal with transferring over 50,000 technicians, at least 5,000 scientists from Germany to America, the majority of the scientists went to America, some went to Russia, Soviet Union. Was that the Luftwaffe, which many of these people were members of as well, never surrendered. People don't know that.
So did they go to Argentina?
Yeah, of course, that's where Adolf Hitler died. He didn't die in Germany, and they didn't have discover his nose or his body, whatever. No. He died years later, I think in his 80s. The fact is that many of these former German scientists and technicians, that's why you can go to Coronado base, which is a naval base in San Diego, and you can actually see the buildings are in the actual shape of a swastika. Most people don't realize that our so-called agencies like the CIA, DARPA, NSA, etc., are fully Nazified. We have a nidus of Nazi ideas inside there, and the Dark Brotherhood that actually founded, which are basically satanic brotherhood called the Brotherhood of the Bell, Brotherhood of the Bell, and these secret orders that formed the Nazis and the SS squads, because they had their own, by the way, they had their own Bible that had 45 pages of SS if you want to call it, spiritual literature in the front of the Bible. I actually saw an SS Bible many years ago.
Really?
People don't realize the SS are very religious.
Well, it's a very strange world we live in, sir.
It is indeed. And most people don't realize that the world that they've believed in, the world they've been told by their churches, their schools, etc., never existed.
You know, while we got a couple of minutes here, something I've looked into, and I keep running on a dead end because the best books are untranslated from German. It has to do with New Schwabenland, which is the area of the Antarctic that the Germans occupied and probably still occupy. I just keep running on the dead ends. My lack of being able to read German has been one of them. But I think it's a fascinating area to study that certainly bears looking into.
Well, I can tell you a little bit about New Schwabenland. The first thing is the Germans had submarines going back and forth there. And they were looking at ancient documents and maps. They would go back to the map maker that made the maps, by the way, for North America. He also made the maps for Antarctica.
The Pirates maps. Right.
Yeah, and those, by the way, those maps show that Antarctica was not at the South Pole. It was at a different location, which means it was a drift of the actual axis of the North-South Pole. So the Antarctica is a relatively recent event. In fact, if you go off the coast of Antarctica, you'll find a frozen forest off the coast of Antarctica. That's
right.
Basically, so we know that that whatever cataclysmic event happened that created Antarctica, it was a continent with animals and people, etc. It wasn't a dead barren wasteland with Mount Erebus in the center of the largest volcano on Earth. The Schwabenland, apparently, they were going to visit under the ice sheet and under the Lake Vostok, which is the largest freshwater lake frozen underneath this giant sea ice cap.
Right.
They were visiting an ancient temple. That ancient temple was apparently supposed to house, according to ancient documents that they obtained, because remember that the Nazis and the SS and so on were looking up for ancient documents, including the sort of the Spear of Destiny that was supposedly had the power to make sure that empires would stay in power, which is why the Romans carried the Spear of Destiny, was later passed on to the various parts of the Roman Empire. And the Spear of Destiny, and then they also were looking at other documents to find this temple that was basically buried underneath the ice cap in Antarctica. And so that's why the submarines were there, because they were down there looking for this temple, because they had these maps. And they were looking for otherworldly technology. So this otherworldly technology involves things like anti-gravitonics, et cetera, that apparently was down there. And that's why when you look at the saucer programs, the British Air Force, I talked to British Air Force pilots as long ago as the 70s, that saw literally squadrons of these, disc-like, we'll call them UFOs. I'm going to call them IFOs, identified fiendish objects, that they're not other than our world. They're actually created here. Most people don't realize this, that we have a lot of advanced technology that we don't talk about.
Oh, yeah.
It's super classified. And, of course, the president, that's why they have this Book of Secrets. But when I look at this Book of Secrets show on television, I said, this is Mickey Mouse compared to what I know personally, and I'm sure there's a lot more out there. We know we have anti-gravitonics, we've got space fleets, we have a colony on Mars, we have a mining operation on the moon since even before the Eagle landed. We're doing all kinds of things. We actually, in fact, the first statement that the director of U.S. Space Command said to me and the other docs that we were being recruited in 1994 was, we control every cubic centimeter of space between here and Mars. That's his first statement. And we won't want you to freak out, so we're going to tell you everything. We started off with a Dark Knight satellite out at 22,000 miles inside the third belt of the Van Allen radiation belt, larger than the space station. And then when he told us how long it's been up there, he said, we estimate between 13 and 35,000 years.
I routinely hear 12,000 years, but...
yeah, but he said between, we're not sure, he said between...
far back, what's the difference, 12,000...
Right, he said somewhere around, 12, 13,000 years to 35, we don't know. So it's really, really old. And he says, and you don't know if it's ours or theirs. And I said, well, it's probably ours, and our civilization fell because all the ancient documents, including the Greeks, who kind of tried to document beyond the pillars of the Mediterranean, there was this great empire, and it fell. And, of course, there are a lot of earth changes, so we know that whatever the positions of the continents, I think the analysis was, I think it's 8 million years ago, Alaska was on the equator. Did you know that?
Well, if you dig down through the permafrost, you find tropical plants, so why not?
Right. 8 million years ago, Alaska was on the equator. And wherever Antarctica was, the rotational axis of the Earth moved the lithosphere of the crust in relationship to the mantle. And that has happened before. As it says, like in a Battlestar Galactica, this has happened before.
Absolutely. Doc, I'm going to turn it over to you and Ann and jump out of here. Have a great week.
Yeah, good notice. I'll tell you, people shouldn't take notice. I don't think this is a crying wolf. When all our embassies close in the Middle East... welcome back. And, so when I talked to Jerry Strybus this morning, and he's back to now, I think, 6 months from Saudi Arabia, and he got a State Department alert that that's what's going on. Now, I tell people... there's 3 classes of information we have. The first is we have biblical information that says standards that by the biblical standards you have to measure everything. And then, of course, the second class is we call prophetic, which means it has to integrate with that, but it's a higher class of information. And the third class is really good information from really good sources, things like published articles, whistleblowers, etc. When we look at what's going on, and what do you think of the you mentioned just on the break about H1N1 that in Ecuador the swine flu is causing 10% case fatality, but you mentioned H7N9 that actually produces per day far more viral particles than any other flu in history, and which means if you ever see a recombinant between these 2 flus, you'll see what flu that can spread quickly to the receptor binding domain with H1N1 because it's been embedded in the human population longer. And then combining with H7N9, which both Chinese and scientists here in America have stated through our channels and classified channels that these are lab viruses. In fact, one of my young colleagues, now I haven't had him back on the show for a while, he's actually put the website up called labvirus.com, and he's quite a character, musician, etc. up in San Francisco. So what do you think, Ann? Tell us more about these details.
Well, they've done mouse studies and ferret studies with the H7N9, and one of the things they found is the H7N9 infects people through the eyes. So if you think that
you're
going in to be assessed for H7N9, you want to make sure that your doctor is wearing goggles, and if he isn't, then you want to go to a different doctor because he could pass it on to you. In addition, you want to avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth to help spread to help prevent the spread of germs. Now, what they did was they wanted to test the H7N9's ability to replicate in cells, and the epithelial cells are the ones that are found in the human respiratory tract. And so they found that compared to the H3N2 virus, the H7N9 virus exhibited an 80,000-fold increase in replication in 24 hours.
So we have the Armageddon virus, and we have the bond market blow-up being pushed by the federal government. We have the Middle East ready to blow up because we have an alert, all our embassies are closing. We have the government of Obama still pushing, even after Saudi Arabia almost 6 months before pulled the support for a fellow Muslim Brotherhood organization. We have Obama trying to still fund laterally the so-called al-Qaeda terrorists when they've already told us that they got man pads and they want to bring down European and American jets. And we now are starting to get more information, which I posted to talk about the other day, that there were up to 35 CIA operatives on the ground at the time this happened in Benghazi. Many of them got wounded. A number more got dead. And we don't hear any of this word because what really happened from my sources, which are classified, that we had given through the State Department 67 Stinger missiles plus, which can take down an aircraft, etc., to the al-Qaeda, included al-Nusra elements, which are on the enemy list. And we tried to get them back. And the reason why they sent him in there was to try to look like he was, not coming in with a full contingent to protect himself on the most dangerous day of the year to a place that's not secure. And they backed off and made sure publicly that they weren't going to send in air support or anything else to make sure if things went down wrong, that he and anybody with him died, to cover it up. So it was a cover-up before it even happened, is what it was. The reason is that Obama is so incompetent, the State Department, they actually gave these things because they made a decision, we have to take down Syria. And the thing that stopped it, the same thing with Snowden, and Snowden knows that he would be like many of these other people that are whistleblowers. He'd just be in prison, tortured. God knows what they do to him. Because you can't trust the government. There's no valid, normal ways of actually having whistleblowers speak. So that's what happened there, and I think that we are heading toward tyranny. The problem is the government are freaked out because they know that we're getting on to them. Things like Bitcoin, electronic bartering, peer-to-peer networks. I've talked to people here in California, and we have people inside the government designed a fully encrypted peer-to-peer network that the government and the NSA cannot and will not and never can hack through. A hackless environment. They know if we start disconnecting from their, quote, economic system, which might happen after a crash, that their power and control is gone. They also know if a coronal mass ejection hits, like we just missed one 2 weeks ago, their ability to control a population when satellites go down and power grids go down becomes zero. The only thing that they can do is stand on the sidelines and try to protect themselves in nuclear-powered little silos underground they call hotels, because the only force that's going to be above ground will not be military. It'll be civilian militia and gangs, period. Everything else is irrelevant. So the idea of people talking about martial law, we have martial law right now to the extent that people are being snooped on and monitored and terrorized. But the government cannot bring about martial law. It's impossible unless they get us to cooperate with something like an airborne plague or financial disaster where they have to make people beg for the next bowl of gruel. Other than that, there's no way for them to do martial law. It ain't going to happen, can't happen. It doesn't even matter if the country's disarmed. You have disarmed people, eventually you piss them off enough, they'll find some way of getting a hold of some kind of weapons and guns. But here in America, with the number of people in the history of America, when I hear people say about martial law, we got martial law right now. Your home is your cell. Your cell phone is your cell, and they can track it. Your Twitter account and the national ID, which they kicked down the can from May of this year, has a tracker chip in it, has a biometric ID, and they can ask, DHS can ask for any new information they want. Terahertz body scan, no problem. DNA endonuclease, Building 10, Affymetrix, Chicago, Building 10, Oak Ridge National Lab, DNA biochip to determine your DNA from anybody else, no problem. They can ask for anything and you can't refuse it because it's a national biometric ID, which was passed in 2009. They even tried to snap it on the side of this immigration bill with a gang of 8. So when people talk about martial law, we got it now. But this is as far as they can go until we cooperate by having an airborne plague, a financial catastrophe, or natural disaster like the coronal mass ejection. And without the public's cooperation, there's no such thing as martial law. If the government loses total control with a power grid down or with, what we call real terrorism, where the black ski mask guys could start knocking on doors and smashing people down and so on and killing people, it'll be like the British with a big cross on their chest. We'll know who to kill. So the police and Delta Force and special ops teams in New York State begged the governor not to enforce a law they already have on the books this year that says they can SWAT team your ass anywhere. Now, they SWAT teamed 80,000 families and homes this year in America by federal forces. They continue SWAT team, and we're going to SWAT their ass. They're not going to live long if they continue doing this. There'll be vets there when they go start seizing guns from vets at, at 3 in the morning. They're going to find guys on the roof, rocket-propelled grenades, armor-piercing weapons, tracks blown off their APCs, roads blown up so you can't get away, and it's going to be a mess. It'll not be so fun as dealing with Iraqis on the road to Baghdad airport. It's going to get ugly to the nth level. And if they think they're going to take on Americans and just roll over us, think again. We're not afraid of dying. We're not afraid of our blood or yours. And if you think you can do this, you better stop dreaming this dream because it's going to end up a nightmare. What do you think, Ann?
Well, I remember what I was told, and that was that it's going to end up a war between the gangs and the police. And
no, the police aren't even involved.
The
police are going to become part of the civilian militia. So is the sheriffs. The sheriffs, the police, and the citizens will form one side, and the gangs are going to get their ass kicked.
Yes.
That's the way it is, okay? That's the way it is. The gangs have gotten too many people that lack discipline, lack physical health, lack training, and they may have a bunch of weapons, but it doesn't mean squat if you can't shoot straight, and if you're on drugs or you're dehydrated and you're improperly nourished. Being younger doesn't save your ass if you don't have training and discipline.
Well, and that's why I think everybody needs to be prepared to protect themselves until the gangs are gone.
Right. Well, again, a lot of the gang members will actually turn over and become part of the civilian militia, too. A lot of people think, oh, it'll all just go bad. I think, no, some of them will kind of get it to realize this is stupid. Why fight against citizens that are going to outnumber you dramatically and lose? And you'll see that happen, too. But the police will become part of the civilian militia and the military, and the idea that you're going to see military officers being ordered to start fragging citizens or doing stuff, not going to happen. If an officer orders that, he's going to have his brain splattered all over the wall in about 35 seconds.
What a beautiful world this will be. What a glorious time to be free. What a beautiful world this will be. What a glorious time to be free. What a beautiful world this will be.
Welcome back to the NutriMedical Report, and we're going to post up a number of websites, and I'll rattle them off quickly, but I'm going to actually post them up on the site and make sure that the URLs are correct. uvb.nrel.colo state.edu/UVB and cpc.ncep.noaa.gov/stratosphere/UV_index.
Correct.
And then the third one is uvawareness.com, which will give you an hourly UV index, and you just put your zip code in. And of course, you mentioned Mexico City. This weekend will be hit a record level of 14. What's going on is, and I listened to Dane Wigington, who's been investigating this for 10 years. The problem is Dane has picked up parts of the problem, looking at geoengineering as a primary cause of UV light surge and increases. And looked at the issue of Fukushima Daiichi as a minor factor. The major factor is actually just the output of the sun, and we talked about this with Professor McCanney. The sun is putting out more dangerous radiation than it has been for a third of a century, and it's been gradually increasing, and increasing at an ever-increasing pace of ultraviolet B light and C and D. And according to Tandeo, the two new bands since 1992, 21 years ago, are in the C and D light bands. A will tan you, B will burn you, C can give you cancer and suppress your immune system, and is very high energetic, so it goes right through clothing, most clothing, except for what's called the UV protection clothing, which you can specially order. And no UV protection, by the way, cream can stop the UVC. UVD is so powerful it'll go right to the side of a building because it's right before X-rays. So UVD is bad stuff. So bricks and mortar just barely stop it. It gives you an idea just how powerful these are.
Yeah, we're seeing skin cancer now, melanoma in 35-year-olds.
Right. Now, what they do is cause DNA adducts. They literally attach what's created a thing called thymidine dimerization. And the thymidine molecules in your DNA and RNA get cross-linked, and the DNA can properly unzip and form new replications. So you get a broken DNA, or what's called codon slip. So there's the technical reasons for why it don't work. As they say, it don't work. So what people need to know is the technical answers are, Dane Wigington did some good work, geoengineering is damaging it. The reason why they put this radiomagnetic mirror up, and I talked about this last night on the Rents Network, because I'm on every Thursday, usually the second hour, usually the second week, the third hour on Thursdays, is three reasons. They put the high altitude particles not according to the original Edward Teller idea over 20,000 miles off the Earth, but they put it in the upper troposphere at 73 to 80,000 feet, which is bad. And what it's doing is these are paramagnetic molecules, barium nanoparticles, aluminum nanoparticles, and thorium nanoparticles. And by the way, 1 in 50 thorium atoms is radioactive. These are all paramagnetic. They're incredibly neurotoxic, vasotoxic, and toxic to the intermycorrhizae, which is the lichens that actually allow the rhizomes of plants and trees to actually pull nutrients and minerals in. So combined with the UV shock that's happening to kill the trees, we have basically mineral depletion, because these heavy metals are causing heavy metal poisoning of all the living things on Earth, including us. And then they put it up there for three reasons. Firstly, to create a radiomagnetic mirror to literally deflect into space the plasma field and the proton storm that occurs with a CME, to protect the Earth and its communications from this kind of problem. Of course, it's not going to stop the communication satellites because they're above that, but it will protect the power grid. The second is to use what's called toroidal torsion field imaging to map out all the three-dimensional resources oil, gold, everything under the earth and under the oceans. And the third is to create a plasma interferometry weapon where they can literally create a plasma explosion over any city up to 100 megatons or bigger, basically within minutes without firing a missile over any city on Earth. And to use it also as a radiomagnetic induction system to induce what's called geotectonics, or earthquake weapon from space by putting in interferometry fields set to the harmonic frequency of the tectonic plates to reach what's called the piezoelectric slip threshold. They can also move the jet stream to change weather, and they have supercomputer models where they perturb it in specific places, and they can remotely affect weather continents away by the butterfly effect. So that's the main reasons. Then the second level of chemtrails we see changing the albedo of the Earth are mid-level flights coming out of jet aircraft and commercial aircraft. And those form those fluffy clouds that can turn the sky gray into a hot cross bun. And the third level are what's called low-altitude sprays of things like the fluorescent bacteria and other organisms to measure how they could spray an area to kill crops or people with a pathogen. They've been doing that since they had the early planes in the 1920s. So those are the three programs. A lot of people don't know the details. I do. I know them in exquisite detail, but that's a summary. And what they need to understand is that what is being done is we already have global government. And there's an interface between our globalist bankers and our United Nations, which is what I call the human interface to a much more demonic and transdimensional powers that are in place now on the Earth. People, I won't get into the details of it, but it's pretty dang scary. If it wasn't for the fact I have faith and know the Most High God, I'd completely freak out. But I know my God is God.
So are you talking about these transdimensional travelers that's coming from another universe or another galaxy?
Yeah, but I wouldn't call them UFOs because they've been here. These fiendish beings have been here forever.
Oh, okay.
For example, it talks about in the Bible, the 200 that landed on Mount Horeb and hybridized with humans to create the Nephilim, and the giants of old, the mighty men, the demigods. This is real. This is not made up in the imaginations of, quote, the ancient prophets or whatever, or they said it as an allegory. This is real. What they need to understand is we have the modern Nephilim literally here on Earth, and their proxies are the people of clay and iron that are being avatared like Obama, probably created through sex magic rituals and human sacrifice and God knows what, so that his body and his personage is being avatared and driven like a car as the president to do policies that are anti-American and anti-human. Same with Hillary Clinton. She is a very large, very tall, very wide, very nasty Draco-reptilian transdimensional avataring her frame or human husk, sufficiently cursed by her ancestors through hundreds of generations.
Well, do they only inhabit certain people, or do you have to be Christian in order not to be inhabited, or how does that work?
It works because these families have used these bloodlines of control. If you actually follow the bloodlines, for example, the black nobility of Venetia, you can track them back through Constantinople and ancient Greece, and you go right back to Atlantis. They're the same people genetically. In fact, you can see a statue of Nero in Rome, and he's a dead ringer for Bill Clinton.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
He looks just like him, man. I mean, you look at him and say, whoa, Bill, how'd you get back there? He's dead ringer. Dead ringer. Looks just like us. Like, Bill, I hope you don't have Nero tendencies, but I think we have those now in the Abominator. He has a perfect name for it, too. The Abomination That Shall Desolate. The Deconstructor of America. They should have him out there when he gets to his teleprompter. One of the Secret Service passes him his helmet, has a little map of America with a wrecking ball hitting it.
Well, if they close the embassies in the Middle East, what do the Americans who are traveling in the Middle East do if they get into trouble?
Pray. Keep your head down. Look Arab. Wear one of these Arab hats. Cover your face. Learn how to say Allahu Akbar and other Arab sayings. Make sure you give bakshish on Friday. Don't offend anybody until you get out of there.
Well, I thought that was one reason we had embassies, was to help our people that were over there.
Embassies are a sham. Just look what they did to you used to have a policy, we don't leave any Americans behind. Hogwash. They purposely left them behind because they're covering it up we have a criminal cabal that's taken over the government. And you mentioned an interesting report here about these viruses, and I've said I have 3 levels of information. We have the Bible, we have prophecy, and we have really good sources. Now we have a real good source with ProMedMail.com. And you can look through these articles, and it's like, whoa. And these bugs are, I believe, we're going to see a bank blow to the bond market, and airborne plagues hit this fall. The government with the Mideast obviously are planning on something big. Perfect time to do it after they've been harassed by both parties not happy and almost passing a law to shackle the NSA, no such agency, on snooping on us. So it's either that or real stuff happening. It's either to cover the snoop attitudes of the government that are globalist, or it's real terrorism about to happen. Which, by the way, was the Sunarov brothers. They watched it, they shepherded it, they didn't do anything to interfere with it, even after the Russians warned us, because they wanted it to happen because it's good for their business. Bad. So look out. The minions that sock puppet Obama are on the warpath, and it's probably going to get bad before it gets catastrophic.